Yo, good morning, guys. What's up? Just checking social media. Seeing if there's any good news or memes. I'll take either one right about now. Charger. I'm just saying, babe. I got a phone charger and a laptop charger to go with this.
I asked you anything else. It was sitting on the table by itself. It wasn't plugged in.
Hey, cause who used it last?
Not me.
Can I use your laptop?
And you used it after me. I swear to God. Yes, the fuck you did.
No, I didn't.
Why again?
I did.
Why again?
Yo. You go live, though. You can't abuse me on camera, yo. Yeah. See, she was about to beat me up. Y'all seen that shit, right?
Ain't nobody watching. I hope y'all rewind this shit back.
Yeah, it's still recorded.
Because I'm going to kick him in his leg.
Threats. And
promises. I brought some extra stuff. I brought a pizza up too. And some, like, Hot Pockets and stuff, just in case.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
And I brought you some more waters upstairs. I only have 2 hands.
I get it. And 2 feet, so.
That I gotta walk with.
Yeah. You're doing better than I am.
You're still my nerve.
What up, though? Let's get set up for some new shit because I'm finished with this painting on that easel. What? It's in the laptop bag. So.
What?
So easy. Right? You could just put the whole bag up here. And then when I was ready to take it down, I could just strap it on my shoulders.
Well, I guess you should have given me them instructions.
I gotta be more specific.
Yep.
Thank you so much. You're so helpful.
My bad. I didn't do that before. Let me finish getting myself together. I'm about to go. Anything else? Brought you 2 bottles of water upstairs. I put the stuff in the freezer. I'm gonna take the trash out and get them dishes before I go.
That's it.
I know you was about to tell me to do that.
Yep. Thank you. Alright. Oh my god. So still got this. But actually had surgery. So I'm on the road to recovery. And I ain't gonna lie, yo. This is the most intense pain I've ever been in my entire fucking life. Like I'm on some meds to like numb that shit and dull that shit, but like when that pain comes into that fucking leg, yo. Bro, I ain't never felt no shit like this before, yo. I feel like, I don't know, I could imagine this what it feels like getting shot or something. I feel like a motherfucker shot me. Yo, this shit hurts so bad. So bad, yo. You don't even know. All right. So I'm taking like basically some over the count. Oh shit. Taking like some over the counter shit, but they did give me some oxycodone, but it's like a low dosage. Yo, that shit barely helps with the pain, barely. It's crazy. That shit is crazy. But they're saying um, about 12 weeks recovery time, and then uh, even after, even after I'm recovered from this injury, like once again, my shit will never be 100% again. So I always have to be careful with this shit from now on, which is cool. Like I get it. I mean, I'm getting older anyway, damn near 40. It's not like I'm out there, and I'm not some athlete, so it's not like I'm out there fucking skateboarding and doing ollies and you know running drills on a football field or whatever. You're like fuck that. My life is pretty slow paced anyway. The most I do is the most physical uh, shit I do is go to the gym and work out a little bit, but I'm kind of mad now. I can't even go to the fucking gym. So I'm just sit here and you know get all fat and shit. But I just can't wait to get this cast off and at least go to the boot phase. It's so hard to like get around and you can't get this shit wet. That's the only thing is like so now I gotta use a trash bag and tape and motherfucking wrap and tape this shit up every time I get in the shower. It's too much. But at the same time, like I don't know, like I have a really decent support system right now. I could, yeah, I swear, like I couldn't have gotten through this shit without my girl, and like my job is so understanding and so helpful. Like I've literally had like four coworkers text me and like, yo, if you need anything, and one of them was my direct supervisor, like my boss. Text me like, yo, if you need anything, like literally, if you need me to come to your house and help you do stuff, if you need me to help take out your trash or do laundry, like they're willing to help me out. Like that's how dope the people I work with are. And my girl, like, she don't even live in the same state, yo. And she's been up here for like days and helped me at the hospital and everything. That was some crazy ass shit too, yo. Like, I still can't get over the fucking anesthesia, yo. Still can't get over that shit. Because everybody says, like, Oh, you won't remember nothing. You won't remember anything. I told the doctor, I'm like, yo, that's my biggest concern, yo. I don't want to wake up like midway through the procedure like they do in the movies and start, you know, not, being disoriented and start ripping tubes and IVs and shit out and trying to rip my breathing tube out or some dumb shit. I was like, yo, is this shit really gonna work? Shit really work for everybody? It's like it works for everybody. Trust me, you won't remember anything, yo. And so I really don't remember shit, yo. I can remember the last little bit. It was like, okay, We're gonna start your the anesthesia now in your IV drip, and you should start getting sleepy soon. I'm like, all right, whatever, and we'll see who gets sleepy. And so we're talking, and they're explaining to me this nerve blocker or whatever. So, and they said they were gonna give me an injection behind my knee that would reach the nerve that basically controls everything from the knee down and numb that shit. And as they were explaining that process, and they said, "Oh, we're going to use an ultrasound so we can find a nerve. So there's very, very, very little chance of nerve damage or anything like this." And I'm like, "All right." And I can swear, like I remember them actually giving me the injection, the nerve blocker, because I'm looking at the ultrasound, and they're like, "Yeah, that's a good spot," and I can hear them saying like, "Yeah, you're at the right injection location," and then that's it. Like next thing I know, I'm fucking waking up in the recovery room, talking funny, because there's like, the breathing tube. There's like you're gonna have you may have a little bit of a sore throat because of the breathing tube, but there's like it won't be bad, and you definitely be able to deal with it. And it wasn't bad. It was just like I don't know. It just felt like I was coughing for a long time. Like, but now after that nerve blocker wore off, yo, oh my god, the whole first day the whole first day after the surgery, I couldn't feel shit. I was liking that. Like, yo, my shit's so numb. I don't feel no pain or nothing. But once that shit wore off, oh my god. I ain't never felt no shit like this, bro. That shit hurt like a motherfucker. Yo, it hurt so bad, yo. So bad. And now I got like, I don't know. I'm assuming I have internal and external stitches because my tendon, so they had to cut me and then go in and then stitch up my tendon and then stitch up the fucking the entry wound. It's like I, and of course I don't even know what that shit looked like. But I tell you what, they say a lot of people say, oh, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. This is something I would wish on my enemy. I swear to God, yo. Motherfucker pissed me off. You know what? I hope you tear your Achilles tendon. Like that is some shit I'll try to curse a motherfucker with, yo, cause that shit is painful. God almighty. You gotta learn how to roll your own cigarettes. Mmm, perfect. Perfect cigarette. Yep. So I actually was invited to do something for local businesses. Let me see what this thing says. Uh, all right, this is Wilkes-Barre Connect will host our next installment of Spotlight, our quarterly Pennsylvania, no, our quarterly speaker series, which is our version of TED Talk, sponsored by Penn State University. Spotlight includes featured speakers that align with the corresponding theme for that particular event. We wanted to dedicate this quarter's spotlight to diversity in our local community. We feel that members of our community would find so much value in hearing about your love of art education, as well as your new business venture. During these difficult times, we are energized and dedicated to amplifying the voices of our local community. Our hope with this diversity spotlight is to highlight 2 to 3 other um, POC minority owned businesses in addition to yours and give them a virtual stage to share what they love doing. If you have any suggestions on local minority owned uh, businesses you feel would like to share what they are doing, we would absolutely love to reach out to them as well. Um, Dan suggested you might be interested in being involved, and if you are, we would be honored to have you participate in this event as we are as one of our spotlight speakers. As a spotlight speaker, uh, we would allot 5 to 10 minute presentation aligning with the work you do in your organization and the significance it holds in our society. So, what they want is a 5 to 10 minute presentation just on the stuff that I'm involved with. And last night I actually started putting together like some footage. Um, and so I'm just going to talk about myself as an artist and my art business, creating portraits for people. Um, my new product, my brush holder that I came up with, my talk show, like my real talk show that I do. Not, I mean, this is real too, guys. I get it. You know, my this YouTube channel is real, but like my legit other um, TV show. That's everything for real. Thank you. All
See you
right,
later.
bye. And so I can talk about that And then talk about my membership with the Black Stratton organization and my partnership with the Keystone Ironworks. And I think that'll be at least 10 minutes. Well, they said 5 to 10 minutes, so if I don't get the whole 10 minutes, I don't think it'll be too bad. But I'll show you guys what I've done so far. Um, it's so hard to see this. Can I not? I don't know how to get it full screen. Hey guys, we're here in my home studio, and this is where I do all of my work. And over the past few years, one of the biggest issues that I've had is keeping my brushes organized while I'm painting. I use multiple brushes at once, and just like most artists, we store our brushes in cups of various sizes, which is okay if you're not using them. But when you're actually working with your brushes, and like I say, you're using more than one color, putting them in a cup or constantly washing them off isn't the best way to. And he made this plastic mock-up version for me, which is really nice. And I've used this for a few months, and I thought it worked so well that maybe I should get a patent for it. And it just holds together with a friction lock. You don't need any glue or screws or anything. And once it's assembled, you're ready to use it. And like I say, the best thing about this system is if you have a wet brush that has blue paint on it, you can set it there and not necessarily need to clean it immediately if you're going to come back to that brush. You can have a brush with yellow paint and a brush with green paint and hold up to 16 brushes if you want, and even store your brushes here when you're not using them when they're clean and dry. So I thought it was a good idea for me, and now it can be used by everyone out there. I'm currently selling this product on my Etsy page, which is Paintings by the Prince. And like always, you can find me on all social media, all platforms at Paintings by the Prince. Thanks, guys. And today, our guest is Grace and Peace. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you for coming to chat with me, man.
No problem.
The first thing I always do with my guests is I want you to tell.
I just got out of really tough circumstances, and I remember, getting off the plane in San Antonio, and it was a butterfly migration season.
Oh.
So there's thousands and thousands of white butterflies.
And being able to transfer that visually into your art so that the viewers can understand these same concepts, metaphors, ideas, I find it important. And someone told a story that he even
paid for a really fancy meal by doodling on a napkin and said, there's your payment for my dinner tonight. So I wish I could just reach that level.
Same.
All right. So, a little bit more editing. Ow! Ow! So I add some pretext to the clips from my TV show. And that's it. There shouldn't be a lot more. I'll put in some slides, a few slides of some of my favorite paintings. Put in some pictures of me and my Black Scranton family. And then that might be it. But I'm not getting paid or anything for this, but at least it is exposure. And exposure is a good thing. All right. And on Thursday, I have a meeting with a local business owner. He actually owns an art supply store. Well, it's called Marquise Art and Frame. So you can buy art supplies and get paintings or pictures framed there. Oh, y'all gotta find a way to keep my leg propped up. Fuck. Son of a bitch, yo. This shit is. I just can't wait to get well, yo. Just hurry up and get better, foot. Oh, so shit can go back to normal. Damn. Oh, man. And having one bad leg now it makes my other leg hurt because I'm putting more weight and more strain on my good leg. I'm like hopping around on the shit, so now my calf is sore all the time. My ankle on my good leg is starting to fucking hurt. And then now this thigh is always cramping up because I'm always trying to hold this fucking leg up off the ground. It's like, my God, yeah, I'm just tired all the time. My legs are fucking killing me right now. My legs are killing me. And then it's and then it doesn't help that I live in a fucking 3-story house. and my studio is on the 3rd fucking floor. You know how hard it is for me to get up here right now? Huh? You don't. You have no idea how hard it is for me to get to my studio right now. It's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? But this will show you my level of determination. Huh? That's all that is, man. I am determined to paint. I don't give a fuck if I gotta crawl up 3 flights of stairs to get to the studio in order to paint. That's what I will do. I will hobble my ass up here as many times as I need to. And I thought about that shit, yo. I ain't gonna lie, yo. When I first was moving into the house, and I was like, should I put my studio on the 3rd floor? It's like that shit is pretty far away from everything. My God. But then I was thinking, like, if it's on the 3rd floor, then the whole 3rd floor is mine. There is no reason for anybody else to even come up here. You know? And so I like that idea, but now that I'm severely injured, post-surgery, it's like, this wasn't the best idea in the world, now was it? And I hope everybody else is having a good morning. My morning's still going good. You know what I'm saying? I'm just in a bit of pain. I'm still having a pretty good morning, though. We get to take this off the easel and throw something else up on there. You know why? Because this bad boy is done. It's like done. I signed that shit, yo. It got a signature on it and everything. It's a wrap. I'm on to the next one. You feel me? I'm on to the next painting, bro. Ugh. I don't like all the sound effects. I gotta grunt and groan and moan every time I fucking move around now. It's too much. Fuck. Oh my God. Let's see if I can get this chair to come up. Nope. Come on, chair. Don't fucking. See, I can't do this shit with one leg. Son of a bitch. Come on, chair. Just come up for me, bro. Oh my God. Chair. Just come up, chair. You motherfucker. Why? You know, it shouldn't even have to be all of this, man. It shouldn't have to be all of that just to get the chair to come up. You know, you feel me? Rough times, man, rough times. I mean, what you gonna do though? You know what I'm saying? Roll with the punches, nigga. Roll with the punches. Damn, that's a good painting. You know what I'm saying? That's a good painting right there. Transition in the colors. You see how the transition in the skin tones. It's so smooth, yo. Such a smooth transition. I love it. Yeah, man, this painting came out really good. Already told my client it's finished, and I mean immediately. As soon as I said it was finished, he was like, "I'm sending you the payment now," and sent me the rest of the payment, and that's a done deal. You know, that's a done deal. It's still wet, uh, so I'm gonna let it dry for a couple days here, and then I'll try to varnish it maybe Wednesday or Thursday. If it's dry enough by then, varnish it. Like I say, Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, I just painted that blue yesterday, so that's wet. But that should be the last thing to dry. Everything else is basically dry to the touch. It's just the background. Yeah, that's good. I'm pretty sure all her skin is good over here. I did a little bit to her hair, so there may be some spots there. Yeah, a little black right there. In his hair, uh, well, his hair may take a while to dry. But we'll see. If it's done by, if it's dry enough to varnish it this week coming up. But yeah, that's a good paint. Yeah, that shit hot. Don't you wish you had me do something for you like this? That's all it takes, man. That's all it takes. Power of the dollar. All right, so if we get this off of here, you know what, guys? I actually Yo, thanks. Yo, I actually don't have any commissions to work on. Like, this was the last commission I had, so I actually get to work on some of my own paintings now. I've been trying to do this for months, yo. Like, just get back to some of my own work. But, like, every time I get close to getting done with a commission, someone's like, I need you to paint this. And I'm like, awesome. You know, that's money in the pocket. Let me get that. But it's still like, oh, now I got to put my project back again and put my project back again. But now, for the time being, I got a little bit of time to work on one of my own paintings. So let's break this thing back out. And then, like I say, I have a couple pictures on my phone I need to print out too, yo. Yo, this painting is good though. Like, this is a good painting right here. Yo, that shit hot, yo. Yeah, so I think we're gonna work on this one. What is that? Knock the speaker down? Fuck. Alright. So first of all, I need to find this picture. Number one. You know, I might have to print this over again. So that's the picture for that. Cause that's not done either. So that's that picture. This is actually done. This picture has been done. So I need that photo. Just finished that picture. That's done. So where in the heck is this picture at? Come on. So unorganized, bro. You're so unorganized. Oh, I see it. And why isn't it the bigger picture? Oh, because I remember. I don't know. I should have asked my doctor if I can get like a temporary handicap sticker. Is that a thing? Do you have a temporary handicap? I remember now, but I don't know. Like the last time I went to when I went to print these pictures out, for some reason they didn't have the larger sheets of photo paper, so I had to get a smaller one, and it's just harder to see. I'm still thinking if I should just like go get this shit printed out on a bigger one like I always do. Hmm. I mean, I got that far working from this picture, so I guess I could finish it. But now it's like kind of faded a little bit or something. Hmm. I really don't feel like going to get a better picture. You know what I could always do? I could just email it to myself and pull it up on the computer. That's why I need a tablet, yo. I used to have a tablet to use for references, but then I broke that shit. So first of all, is this photo? This photo still on my phone. think I might try to do it like that. Oh shit.
With remote smart parking assist. You won't find that on a Ford, Camry, or Altima.
Lease a Sonata for $129 a month, or get 0% APR for 72 months plus 500 bonus cash. Learn more at buyhyundai.com.
Again has the solution for your best sleep yet. Get a free adjustable base with the purchase of select mattresses. Plus,
day delivery. You'll be sleeping better tomorrow night. Shop now at Rain.
So much has been said and written about the Great Sphinx of Giza that one could spend years simply accumulating and reading the research of others. This iconic monument has shepherded human civilization down through the ages, from the earliest known times of Old Kingdom Egypt, through thousands of years of wars and conquering armies, multiple periods of restoration and occupation. And yet, despite all of this, it is still standing today as one of the greatest, most enigmatic and most famous works that humankind has ever crafted. In recent decades, the long-established provenance of this monument has been challenged, with strong scientific evidence pointing towards a much longer time frame, and the possibility of a sophisticated civilization existing on Earth for many millennia, and long before our currently accepted dates for the emergence of human civilization. The Sphinx was originally thought to have been created during the infamous 4th dynasty of ancient Egypt. That same incredible and yet fairly short period of time that we today credit with the greatest achievements of Egypt. Mighty works like the mega pyramids at Giza, Dashur and Maidun, as well as many other massive megalithic works like the Valley Temple. I have a video on my channel that breaks down the specific timeline of the 4th dynasty and of these achievements, if you're interested in those details. But let's just say that according to Orthodox history, an awful lot was achieved in an awfully short amount of time. Even though Egypt's 4th dynasty is located far back in antiquity, roughly some 4,600 years ago, geological and scientific evidence now points to a potentially far longer history than this for the iconic Sphinx. This evidence grants us fresh context and perspective, from which we can view various attributes and aspects of the Sphinx as well as historical accounts of it in a new light. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at the accounts of its very first excavation in what we might call modern times, or at least in the last few hundred years. This information isn't as readily available as you might think it is, and in fact the account of this work was only uncovered in 2002 in previously unpublished volumes that were discovered in the archives of the British Museum when they were preparing to move to a new location. These volumes were handwritten and drawn by Henry Salt, who was the British Consul General in Egypt from 1816 until 1827. They tell the tale of the excavation work done by his friend, Giovanni Caviglia, a Genoese merchant ship captain, somebody who became enthralled with the mystery of Egypt and ultimately spent decades working there, trying to uncover her secrets. Giovanni Caviglia isn't a particularly well-known figure today, and neither is the work that he did at Giza, perhaps because Henry Salt's account of it was never fully published. Despite this, Caviglia was responsible for some significant and quite famous discoveries. He was the first man in modern times to discover the connection between the well shaft and the descending passageway in the Great Pyramid. Also, the first man in modern times to clear out and even enter the subterranean chamber of that same structure. He was also the first person in thousands of years to excavate the Sphinx. As far as we know, the last full excavation prior to Caviglia's work in 1817 was that done by Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius in around 160 AD, nearly 2 millennia prior to this. At some point after the Romans excavated it, the desert once again claimed the Sphinx, and for centuries it has been buried up to its neck in sand. These two accounts aren't the only ones in history of the Sphinx having to be dug out of the sands of time. The same thing occurred in the dynastic Egyptian civilization in the 18th dynasty in around 1550 BC, as recorded by the pharaoh Thutmose IV. The fact that the Sphinx has been buried in sand for the vast majority of the time during which human civilization has developed is not something that's widely known, but it's very relevant when it comes to evaluating the signs of age and the erosion that we find on its body and on the walls of the bedrock enclosure from which it was carved. In the decades just before Giovanni Caviglia's dig at Egypt, Napoleon Bonaparte ran a military campaign through that area, and this was somewhat unusual in that included in his party was a large number of scholars or academics, at the time known as savants, nearly 170 of them. These savants documented and explored many of the ancient monuments and sites of Egypt. And in fact, the expedition that was conducted during Napoleon's time was responsible for discovering the famous Rosetta Stone, and it's generally credited with the origins of the modern field of Egyptology itself. While at Giza, his forces also did some digging and some work in the area and at the Sphinx, although he only uncovered the back or the spine of this monument. Haven't seen Napoleon's works before? His book, Description de l'Egypte, which was put together by the savants that were in his employ, is just a beautiful early technical accounting of many of the monuments and sites of Egypt. And it's one of the earliest products of the Enlightenment and the emergence of the scientific method. I'd recommend taking a look at this if you haven't seen it. You can find this book and digitally borrow it at the Internet Archive, which is the online repository of so many of these old books. Well, at least you can borrow this book at the moment, because sadly, if the despicable and greedy publishing companies that are currently suing the Internet Archive get their way, then this invaluable resource is going to go the way of the dodo and disappear from the internet altogether, and all in the name of more corporate profits. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that what these companies are doing is the equivalent of trying to burn down the modern-day digital equivalent to the Library of Alexandria. All because of their greed and the fact that they can't handle the idea of the unwashed masses like you and I digitally borrowing and potentially learning something from some just incredible old books and resources without them getting their slice of cash for it. In any case, Henry Salt's account from the British Museum is one of those rare things that you can't actually find online or at the Internet Archive. Researchers found these 2 volumes of Salt's work in 2002, each of them now more than 200 years old. One of them contained Salt's handwritten account of all of the work, with many annotations and edits from several other people, and the other volume was his diagrams and his sketches. It took significant time and effort to research their provenance and then put the history of these accounts together. Eventually, these books were published in 2007 in a very limited quantity as the British Museum research publication number 164, which is called The Sphinx Revealed, a forgotten record of pioneering excavations. If you search for it, you can find these occasionally on the second-hand book market, but at this point they're getting pretty pricey. Fortunately, I did manage to find one and get my hands on it in 2019. Quoting from the researcher's introduction of this same publication, quote, "In the spring of 2002, when the library and archives of the Department of Ancient Egypt and Sudan at the British Museum were being relocated after the department had moved its offices, 2 volumes of manuscript material attracted our attention. The volumes had been catalogued but never studied in depth, and many of the illustrations appeared to be otherwise unknown. Both volumes had been bound in maroon buckram with an imitation sharkskin finish, and brown calf spines and corners for what was then known as the Department of Antiquities. The smaller volume was inscribed in gilt on the spine, Department of Antiquities, Salt, Memoir on Pyramids and Sphinx, text. The larger one was entitled Department of Antiquities, Salt, Memoir on Pyramids and Sphinx, Atlas. Henry Salt, British Consul General in Egypt from 1816 until his death in 1827, had carefully prepared this work for publication and sent it to London, where it had been edited by his colleagues. It was the dramatic account of the discoveries made in 1817 by the Genoese mercantile captain Giovanni Caviglia at the Great Pyramid of Giza, including a survey and excavations at the surrounding necropolis and the first clearance of the Sphinx since ancient times." End quote. Caviglia's dig was the first one in thousands of years to uncover the full scale of the Sphinx, its chest and its paws, the famous granite stela and altar that still sits between them, as well as the fragments of its beard and numerous other Roman works, including a large staircase and platform that has since been destroyed. Although there's no doubt that people had been digging around the area of the Sphinx, it took a monumental effort and huge numbers of people to try and clear that much sand from the desert. From this account, it was one of those 2 steps forward, 1 step back type of affairs, with sand constantly spilling back into digs and refilling previously dug work overnight. Although Caviglia spent a lot of time and effort clearing out many of the tombs around Giza, as well as clearing out areas of the Great Pyramid, these efforts really paled in comparison to the work he had to put in on the Sphinx. Henry Salt describes this in his account, talking about Captain Caviglia's efforts in 1817. Quote, "The exertions made by Captain Caviglia in clearing out the chambers and passages, which I have already had occasion to describe, may be considered as sufficiently arduous, but the whole of these united exertions cannot in any degree be compared with the extreme laboriousness of his operations at the Sphinx. In these he displayed an indefatigable..."
She had surgery on Friday. I injured myself over a week ago, and it took me a minute to even get to the fucking doctor to get diagnosed because of COVID and hospitals and my my primary physician, their office was backed up, and it's just like, I don't know, it took me like 3 days to see a doctor to figure out like what was wrong with me. And so when I did finally get to the doctor, they're like, "Bro, you're gonna need surgery." And I'm like, all right, but after that, it was like almost immediately. Like I was told I needed surgery on Wednesday, and I was having surgery Friday morning. No, I was told I needed surgery on Tuesday, and yeah, then like that same week, I got the surgery done. I tore my Achilles tendon. They say it's a pretty common injury, more common in athletes. But it's not something that, you know, doctors haven't ever seen. They come across this a lot. It's a pretty, like I say, a pretty common injury. So the surgery and the techniques to, you know, repair it is pretty well known. The doctor just said there are certain parts of the body that cannot take a joke. And shit is like your Achilles tendon and your calf muscles. Shit is like them shits ain't funny at all. And once you injure them or you hurt them, they never come back 100%, yo. All right. I ain't never had no surgery though. I can't wait to see how much they try to charge me for this shit. You know what? I ain't paying no doctor's bills. I don't pay no doctor bills, yo. Fuck that. I got insurance. Whatever my insurance don't cover, oh, y'all ass out. Well, this is how much you owe, Mr. Prince. Oh, really? For my doctor visit? Oh, y'all gonna have to get that shit in blood, nigga. Y'all gonna have to get that shit in blood. Trust me. Only thing I pay is my co-pays. That's it, man. Our healthcare system is so fucked up, man. We shouldn't have to pay for none of this shit anyway. But if I don't even consider that debt, but like that's the only debt I have is like medical bills. I'll pay some of them. I ain't gonna lie. I pay some of my medical bills. Like them bills, they be like $300, $400. Man, screw that. And then I know this surgery, man. Surgery I probably have to come out my pocket like $3,000 or $4,000 or some shit, maybe. But I ain't doing that. Yo, the medical system gonna have to take that on the chin. Y'all gonna have to eat that one. Thanks for the surgery, though, doc. Thanks for the surgery. This is the most painful thing I have ever experienced in my fucking life, yo. Oh my god, you have no idea how bad this shit hurts, yo. It hurts so bad. Like, legit pain, yo. This shit is painful. Oh, man. And it's like, it's non-stop pain. Shit. Motherfucking, goddamn oxy. Ew. Motherfuckers on that opioids. Ah. Damn. Yo, my shit hurts so bad, yo. Man, it's been so long since I worked on this paint now. I'm not even really sure where I'm at and what colors I need. So, I remember the last thing I was doing, I was squaring up some of the books on the bookshelves. Maybe I can work on this section of books. So I may just get some all kind of colors. Oh my god, that's a lot of colors though. But I think if I do that, if I work on the background some more before I work on the foreground, it'll be better. So I'm gonna just grab some oranges and yellows and some blues and some whites and just all kind of shit. Been here for over an hour, haven't even got paint on my brush yet. Alright, we need all the colors. What's the easiest way to do this? Alright, since this is over here. So let's alright. That's not gonna be the easiest way to do it, because that's too far. So let me bring this closer. Like that. Alright, it's much better. Alright. I want this color. I want this color. These colors. This color. Really though. Alright, some of that. I might not even finish this stream, guys. This is gonna be like so boring. Not even gonna lie, bro. Even for me, sometimes it's just like, I'm just painting books. And I'm not even like gonna be lettering them right now. I'm just gonna kind of like shape them up and try to add some color contrast to the books that are on the shelves. So this is not gonna be a very interesting stream at all. Sorry. I just wanna put that out there already. Just in case people want to start bouncing out now. Alright, we need some of that, some of that, some of that. And I'm gonna need some white. Oh my god. Why are these so hard to open, man? Alright. Some white and some green. And then I'm gonna just work with these colors for a minute. I absolutely will have to get more colors because there's so many different kind of books on the shelves. But just to get started, I'll use these colors. Alright. Hit that doobie one more time.
Perseverance, which astonished every person who witnessed it, and which led at length to the discovery of the valuable remains of antiquity hereafter to be described. End quote. Interestingly, one of the reasons for the dig were the reports from Napoleon's expedition of a doorway that led into chambers that were inside the Sphinx. Initially, Cavigula dug a narrow trench on the northern side of the monument, although this really only served to illustrate the full magnitude of the task that was before him. Quote, "From various reports in circulation in Egypt, I was given to understand that the French engineers, during their stay here, had made a considerable excavation in front of the Sphinx, and that they had just discovered a door at the time when they were compelled to suspend their operation. This account was confirmed by the repeated assertions of the Arabs, several of whom declared that they had been present at the discovery and said that the door led into the body of the Sphinx, while others confirmed that it conducted up to the second pyramid. Though little stress could be laid upon such asseverations, yet they rendered Captain Cavigula very unwilling to give up his researches, without doing all in his power at least to ascertain the facts. To this end, he first began to open a deep trench on its left or northern side, opposite the shoulders of the statue, and though the sand was so loose that the wind drove back at night more than half of what he could excavate in the day, yet he managed, by the aid of planks, arranged so as to support its falling side, to dig down a few days to its base. As the trench, however, was not more than 20 feet across at the top and not above 3 feet wide at the bottom, the situation of the workmen below became evidently dangerous, since if any large body of sand had fallen in, it must have irrevocably smothered those who were working near the base. In consequence, it became necessary to abandon the first excavation, the only result of which was the measurement of the statue from the top of the head to the base. The external surface of the body in this part was found to be composed of irregularly sized stones, built up with much care, and covered with red paint, with no very clear indications of the form, but having 3 protruding ledges, one below the other, sufficiently broad for a man to walk upon, and which formed in all probability the lines of the mantle or dress. This I have expressed in the accompanying design, which is drawn accordingly to my ideas of what the statue must have appeared after being restored, as I conceive it to have been, by the Romans. This result, although not very satisfactory, stimulated Captain Cavigula to undertake another excavation on a larger spot in front, which was commenced in the beginning of March, and continued without intermission until the end of June, during which time from 60 to 100 persons were constantly employed." End quote. Cavigula then worked to clear out a great trench in front of the Sphinx, and for the first time in millennia its chest and paws were revealed to the sky, and he made several discoveries that are now quite well-known and famous artifacts. He found parts of the uraeus, which is the snake that sits at the front of pharaonic crowns, as well as several segments from the beard of the Sphinx. Some of these can still be seen today in the Cairo Museum. These finds prompted Henry Salt to make a sketch of what he believed the Sphinx may have looked like after the restoration work that was likely undertaken by the Romans. These artifacts were discovered in a small chamber that was found to be underneath its chin, roughly 10 feet by 5 feet in size. This chamber no longer exists, but its walls were made up of carved and inscribed limestone. Giller slowly cleared this area. He found that the back wall of this small chamber was slightly different, and it was in fact an incredible granite stela that was beautifully inscribed. Quote, 4 or 5 other fragments of the plaited part of the beard were afterwards found buried in the sands, and from the whole of these pieces together I was induced to restore it, as appears in sketch 29. About the same time, a fragment inscribed with hieroglyphics engraved in a double row was dug out, which, from its dimensions and ornaments, I conceive to have formed a part of the wall or pillar, which must necessarily have been left for the support of the beard, part of which, built of stone, remained in its position at the bottom, and this I have in like manner introduced into the design. Most of the fragments aforementioned were found lying in a small and tolerably regular chamber, about 10 feet long by 5 broad, and situated immediately under the chin, and which, if the account of Pliny may be believed, is not unlikely to have contained the body of Amasis, one of the kings of Egypt. Soon after this discovery, a large block of granite became visible, which proved to be highly embellished on the face fronting the east, with sculpture in bas-relief representing 2 sphinxes seated on pedestals, with priests holding out offerings, and a long inscription beneath in hieroglyphics beautifully executed. The whole design being canopied with the sacred globe, serpent, and wings. This tablet constitutes part of a small open temple, the 2 sides of which were composed of other tablets of calcareous stone, somewhat similarly adorned, one of which only remained in its place, the other having fallen on its front, has since been removed and in the British Museum. At this time, the excavation had advanced more than 100 feet from the Sphinx, measuring it on the surface, owing to the necessity of allowing a sufficient space for the shelving of the sand. It is difficult for any person unused to operations of this kind to form any idea of the difficulties Captain Cavigula had to surmount when working at the depth of the base, as, in spite of all precautions, the slightest breath of wind or concussion of any kind set all the surrounding particles of sand in motion, so that the impending sides began to crumble in, and mass after mass came tumbling down, till the whole surface took no unapt resemblance to a cascade. Even when the sides appeared most firm, if the labourers suspended their work for but an hour, they found on their return that they had the greater part of their labour to do again. This was particularly the case on the southern side of the right paw, where the whole of the people were employed for 7 days without making any sensible advance, the sand rolling down in one continual and regular torrent." End quote. This granite stele that Cavigula found is, of course, known today as the famous Dream Stela that was erected by Thutmose IV during the 18th dynasty around 1450 BC. It is, or rather was, a 15-ton slab of inscribed granite that was, like so many other objects in ancient Egypt, originally part of an Old Kingdom structure. Thutmose IV repurposed it. He moved it and then had it carved with the inscriptions that it is today so famous for. Not all of this slab remains in place today, but it's a remarkable bit of work, and an example of the all too common renovation and reuse of Old Kingdom granite structures by later rulers. This is something that I've talked about many times across my videos. I think this is another good example of the great contradiction of the story of Egyptian civilization, that somehow in its very earliest periods, with nothing more than copper and flint tools, the Egyptians had the highest levels of capability, quarrying and working in massive granite stones, building huge and eternal structures like the most famous of the pyramids. Then, later on, presumably with thousands of years of progress and the growth of civilization, along with the use of more advanced metals, the civilization of the Middle and New Kingdoms could never match the works of the Old Kingdom in scale or grandeur, and they were quick to repurpose and claim the mighty stonework of their ancestors for themselves. It seems to me that a much more likely scenario might be that the Old Kingdom was kicked off with some significant assistance from perhaps their own legacy of forefathers, perhaps from a lost and vastly more ancient civilization of high technology and capability, and they inherited much of their knowledge and some of their monuments from them. After all, this is precisely what the Egyptians themselves say. They don't claim to have been a new civilization, but rather a legacy of what came before. In Cavigula and Salt's time in the early 1800s, the story written on the dream stelae was indecipherable. The science of translating hieroglyphs was really only in its infancy at this time. When eventually translated, the stelas spoke of a dream that the young Prince Thutmose had when he fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx. The monument spoke to him in this dream, and it said that if he cleared the sand from the monument and restored it, that he would become king of all Egypt. He evidently followed up on these instructions, and he recorded this tale on the dream stelae when he was the king, although half of the inscription, along with the rest of the stone that it was written on, is now missing. It's interesting to think that at this point in time, some 3,500 years ago in the past, the Sphinx was already vastly ancient and already buried up to its neck in sand. Keep this fact in mind, as we'll come back to it a little later on. In this area between the paws of the Sphinx were also discovered several sculptures of lions, along with a granite altar, the remains of which is still standing in place today, although not in the full form as captured by one of Henry Salt's sketches. Another interesting element in this area is something that many people may miss when they visit it, and that is that the area beneath the paws is not in fact bedrock, rather it's a constructed stone platform or a pavement. As far as I know, we have no indication, at least in the public sphere, whether or not there is anything beneath this pavement or if it's been laid directly onto the bedrock. I suspect that this is the most likely scenario, that it's been laid onto the bedrock. I'd think that if there are any chambers beneath the Sphinx, they would be much deeper than just beneath this artificial floor. The pavement was most likely part of the Roman restoration work that was done here, but that's not to say that there's no mystery involved with what might be below the Sphinx. Rather, it's something of the opposite case. There's really no end to the mystery of this topic. Throughout history, there has always been reports and conjecture about possible chambers or tunnels in the Sphinx or below it. The often discussed Hall of Records is a good example. Certainly the idea of bedrock chambers that are underneath the ground isn't exactly out of the ordinary when it comes to ancient Egyptian and in particular Old Kingdom sites. The Osiris shaft, which is just up the causeway here at Giza, descends some 100 feet into the bedrock with multiple levels and chambers. There are also test shafts and many other underground areas at Giza, including those beneath the Great Pyramid itself. There are literally miles and miles and multiple levels of bedrock tunnels and chambers at nearby Saqqara, also an Old Kingdom site. These all stretch out from beneath the Step Pyramid and all around it. And that's not to mention the nearby mighty Serapeum, which includes just some massive tunnels and chambers, again, all cut from the bedrock. There are also reports of granite blocks being found deep beneath the ground in front of the Valley Temple at Giza. These were found when a test hole was drilled, and this is very close to the location of the Sphinx. A Japanese seismic survey that was done in the late 1980s that used electromagnetic waves to probe underground indicated the presence of multiple cavities and tunnels beneath the Sphinx.
2020 Hyundai Elantra, backed by America's best warranty. That's better than Toyota, Honda, and Nissan. Lease an Elantra for...
Sphinx. There have also been other seismic studies conducted in the...
That's what people don't realize about that shit either, yo. Like the Giza Plateau, like you gotta think of that shit just like New York City, yo. When they talk about all these tunnels and shit in New York, it's a big ass city, big buildings everywhere, lots of people. But then there are underground areas where people are at, yo. You know what I'm saying? All the subways and all that shit, yo. Like, like he's trying to explain, there's dozens of underground tunnel systems on the Giza Plateau, yo. Like, what was this shit used for? Some people say it was channelways for water, to move water, because they had some type of hydroelectric power sources or something, or they used water in some type of way to produce energy or electricity is one theory. And then another theory is that they were just like transportation tunnels, just similar to subways and stuff. It's like, how could we ever really, really know the truth, yo? I really think they don't want to tell the truth about Egypt just because it leads back to the black man, yo. And this is what, there's only one person that I've listened to who's an Egyptian or a modern day Egyptian, or the people who in modern times call themselves Egyptian is how I should. They're just Arabs and Berbers, really. They're not really the people, the descendants of the dynastic Egyptians. Anyway. But Robert Bauval is an Egyptian, an Egyptologist, and he's the only person I've heard say that, like, yo, the people who built these structures were the black man. These were black people. They didn't look European. They didn't look Arab. They looked more like what you would consider a Negroid. And then when you look at the Sans people, they say they're more than likely a better representation of what the Egyptians looked like. And I think I feel that medicine starting to kick in. But I said that shit don't. It can't like get rid of the pain, yo. It kind of like numbs it a little bit and just kind of eases it up a little bit. But yo, my fucking leg is hurting so bad, man. So bad. Jesus Christ. Just heal, body. Just do your thing, body. Hurry up, man. Need to Be motherfucking drinking water and eating kale for the next couple weeks. You guys have any thoughts on the Sphinx and the pyramid? Y'all think that shit really older than what they say? Because on average, they're saying like, okay, the Sphinx is, well, the pyramids themselves are about 5,000 years old, is what they're saying. You know, 4,500, somewhere in between 4,500 and 5,000 years old is how they normally like to date the Sphinx. I mean, the pyramids in the Giza Plateau. But then some people start saying, well, the Sphinx may be older than the pyramids. And then some people said, well, the pyramids may be older than we think they are. And then there's like, oh, well, the Sphinx is definitely way older than we think it is. But some people still don't agree with that. Like I say, that shit just pushes the timeline of civilization way the fuck back, yo. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that the dynastic Egyptians are the ones who came up with all these great edifices and these megalithic structures, or was that plateau and those structures even ancient to those people who came in there? And like the dynastic Egyptians just found that shit. A lot of ancient cultures say they found that shit. Even the Aztecs say that they didn't construct a lot of their temples, like they found that stuff. The Incas, not the Incas, the Mayans said that they found a lot of those great structures. That they didn't build those; they were already ancient by the time they got there. And what if the same is for Egypt? Except the dynastic Egyptians were so arrogant that they just tattooed and graffitied their name on everything. Like, this is my pyramid. Like, is it really your pyramid though, bro? Like, you're the ruling pharaoh, and you can say whatever you want to say, but like, did you really build that shit though? Or was that shit already there? And how long has it been there? Cause I go to the pyramids myself and write my name on that shit. That don't mean I built that motherfucker.
Like the covert Shore expedition of 1996 that also indicated the presence of geological cavities. Not only that, but there are at least 3 known entrances that go into the Sphinx itself, and there are also several first-hand accounts coming from various people throughout the last couple of centuries that talk of entering the Sphinx and finding chambers and the remains of boxes. In today's times, most of these entrances have been concreted in or bricked over as part of the modern repairs to the Sphinx. But there is one entrance that is still near the left hip at the rear of the Sphinx that's still open and still the subject for a lot of intrigue. Egyptologists Mark Lehner and Zahi Hawass supervised a series of drilling tests around the Sphinx in 2008 and 2009, and this happened after decades of refusing exactly these same types of tests. Perhaps unsurprisingly, they declared that nothing whatsoever was found. While I really have no reason not to believe that they didn't find anything with their drilling, this isn't exactly a scientific or comprehensive conclusion. All we have to go on from this is their declaration that nothing was found. I don't believe that any results from these drill tests have ever been made publicly available, nor any solid information on the exact methods and results from these drill tests. To me, this is the real issue here. There just doesn't seem to be enough data or concrete information about this topic available. There is plenty of evidence from multiple surveys in the past that do indicate both the presence and location of chambers underneath the ground. So whether they are there or they're not, it does seem like we could definitively answer this question with modern technology, one way or the other. In 1996, as part of the Shore expedition, Hawass himself said to the press that there were in fact tunnels under the Sphinx, as well as all around the pyramids, and that they would prove to, quote, carry many secrets of the buildings of the pyramids, end quote. Certainly, any exploration of this area today would be challenged by the modern-day rise in the level of the water table, and this was ostensibly the reason for these drilling projects in the first place. Although there is also significant evidence that drilling has been going on underneath the Sphinx since as early as 1978, with some familiar faces involved. It seems to me that more investigation is warranted here, and I do suspect that it's quite likely that more discoveries are just waiting to be made. There are all sorts of modern, non-invasive, non-destructive ground-penetrating techniques that I think could and should be applied here. Given the long history of rumours about chambers beneath the Sphinx, as well as the odd relationship that some of our favourite establishment figures seem to have with Edgar Cayce and his foundation, the Association for Research and Enlightenment, the whole mess seems shrouded in intrigue and mystery.
Wait a minute. Edgar Cayce was like some... He claimed he was a psychic or something, right? What does Edgar Cayce have to do? Oh, wait a minute. Did he make predictions about the Sphinx? And where... I gotta play that back. What kind of... He had some kind of society or something? The Edgar Cayce Society? What the fuck are they talking about?
Drilling projects in the first place. Although there is also significant evidence that drilling has been going on underneath the Sphinx since as early as 1978, with some familiar faces involved. It seems to me that more investigation is warranted here, and I do suspect that it's quite likely that more discoveries are just waiting to be made. There are all sorts of modern, non-invasive, non-destructive ground-penetrating techniques that I think could and should be applied here. Given the long history of rumours about chambers beneath the Sphinx, as well as the odd relationship that some of our favourite establishment figures seem to have with Edgar Cayce and his foundation, the Association for Research and Enlightenment, the whole mess seems shrouded in intrigue and mystery. Personally, I just find this to be frustrating, and while sometimes it's fun to speculate about covert digs, ancient prophecies, secret societies and conspiracies, I think basic questions like what's under the Sphinx could be answered with modern technology, if only we had the permission to do so. It does make you wonder a little bit why this hasn't happened, doesn't it?
Yo! What up, nephew?
Henry Salt's account of the stone tablings at the front of the Sphinx. Most of this today is covered up by the wooden boardwalk that's been built over it, but you can still see some part of it in My Images.
Oh, you want to get up here
and
yawning?
Something that Brian Forrester remarked on in his latest video that explains this area.
It's no coincidence that this boardwalk here.
I'm on live stream, but hey, guys, this is the most pain I've ever been in my life. I've never ever felt anything like this before, yo. And even with the meds, it dulls it a little bit, but that shit don't go away. It don't go away.
It's bearable.
I mean, I'm not crying or nothing like that, but yo, it's just like I just want to hurry up and heal, yo. I've never ever felt anything like this before, yo. It hurts so bad. It hurts so bad. So, and they got me on like Oxycontin, and that shit don't do nothing, yo. That shit ain't. I thought it was supposed to like numb me up. It just like kind of makes it like calm down a little bit. Yeah, but and then they don't last long. And they say I can take that only every 6 hours, but shit, I be needing them shits every 4 hours. What y'all getting into today?
We at church.
Y'all how you on live at church?
It hasn't started yet. You in the cell phone.
Well, praise the Lord.
So he is worthy to be praised.
He is worthy. Yes, he is. God is good.
Chicken is good. God is great.
God is great. There you go. There you go.
Your tweens and things ain't working.
The what?
Them tweens and things this weekend on Friday. Weed ain't working.
Yo, that shit ain't doing nothing, man. That shit like smoking a cigarette, nigga.
Oh, what about your tea? That tea that Jane Sissy.
Yo, my man's been shut down since COVID. Yo, he said it's so bad right now. He think about moving to North Carolina.
Wow.
He said and it's crazy because I'm on live, so I ain't gonna tell too much. But yeah, he was a small business. A lot of people can't hold out, yo. And they got all these ordinances and all this other stuff. Like, yo, he's like he about to move, yo. And I told him that too. I was like, dang, I could use some tea right now, yo. Hey, boy, what all that fuss is there, boy?
He just threw up.
Uh-oh. Oh, you gonna throw up and start crying. Like, we supposed to cry.
Alright, well go ahead since you live. I love you.
All right.
I just want to check on you.
Alright, I love you too.
Okay.
Bye. Oh, my damn sisters. Both of them, and they at church. That's why I be fucking with that shit, yo. Praise the Lord. Yo, my sister's some motherfucking churchy ass motherfuckers, yo. And they love me the same, but they know I don't fuck with that shit no more. But they hate when I even talk about that shit, yo. Where y'all at? We at church. How the hell you on live on FaceTime and you at church? It ain't started yet. You know, chicken is good and God is great. I don't know. Anybody else in here an atheist? Anybody else is a non-believer but still has to associate with those who believe? It's hard. It's different. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, but my sisters, they still love me, yo. I still love them. I just think they silly as all hell. At this point, I'm almost certain that everybody in my family already know I don't believe that shit. So I guess I'm that one lost soul who's damned to hell. Guess I'll be that one lost soul that's damned to hell. 'Cause I ain't want to believe. But that's just like, I don't know. I've always felt that way. Like, I want to believe, but I can't for some reason. And then when I started listening to my homies on the Atheist Experience, and Matt Dillahunty, he said it the best. Like, I'm not convinced. Like, there is nothing that has convinced me that there is a God. Like, if you can convince me, whatever, I don't know what it would take, but whatever it would take for you to convince me that there is a God, then I'll believe that shit. Until then, I'm unconvinced. I have never been convinced since I was a child. It's just, I don't know. No one has ever been able to convince me to believe that shit. And my sisters, they have always believed that shit, and they've always been convinced that there is a God and this and that, and that's great. That's lovely. That's fine with me. No, I have nothing against that at all. But me personally, I don't believe it.
Put in place. It's not simply there in order for people to walk on it so they don't get their shoes dirty, but we've been told by an inside source that the opening or entrance to the tunnel system under the Sphinx is under this boardwalk.
You can also see this constructed stone floor in Henry Salt's sketches. This stonework caused Cavigula and Salt to initially theorize that the entire Sphinx might have been built on a pedestal, and it was only later, as their excavation progressed, that they realized that the Sphinx had been carved out of a hollow or an enclosure in the bedrock. Today, we understand that many massive limestone blocks were removed from the bedrock in order to make this enclosure, some weighing up to and over 200 tons, and these were then used in the construction of the Valley Temple. Quote, "A considerable portion of the left leg being now laid open, and the stone platform still continuing, it became a new incentive to proceed, and in about a fortnight more, Captain Cavigula succeeded in completely cleaning the pore, when he discovered the outer walls of the temple, together with a granite altar standing in front. It was also ascertained that at about 2 feet south of the last digit, the stone platform abruptly terminated. This latter circumstance led to the conjecture that the whole body of the Sphinx might be placed upon a pedestal. In this, however, we were altogether mistaken, for on carrying on the operations towards the northern side in front, it was discovered that the platform there continued on an uninterrupted level, and soon after, to our great surprise, an ascending flight of steps became visible, which, in contradiction to our supposition, proved the Sphinx to be placed in a hollow." End quote. Here, Henry Salt is describing the discovery of a vast Roman construction that was in front of the Sphinx, a wide staircase and esplanade leading up to and away from the Sphinx that was originally connected to this pavement that is now underneath the pores. These are his sketches of this work, from the pores of the Sphinx leading away, and then from the perspective of looking at them with the Sphinx at your back. It extended up and away from the Sphinx to the point where the ground itself falls away from the plateau, and included viewing platforms for VIPs, kind of like a corporate box for the emperor, presumably in order to view ceremonies that were held between the pores of the Sphinx. It must have been quite a sight. All of this Roman work has since been demolished, and no trace of it remains at Giza, perhaps only the pavement between the pores that we discussed earlier. This is yet another reminder that what we see today is but a fraction of the multiple incarnations and periods of both construction, renovation, and destruction the monuments of Egypt have endured over the ages, and perhaps none so as much as the Sphinx. The beautiful ancient monument that we can visit today and pay a special permission price in order to enter the enclosure and stand between its repaired and rebuilt pores, this isn't your great-granddaddy Sphinx, and it certainly doesn't come close to resembling the Sphinx as it was uncovered by Cavigula in 1817. The pores and much of the lower areas of the body of the Sphinx have been repaired over the last couple of centuries. The neck of this Sphinx was previously much thicker than it appears today, as part of the headdress has also been reconstructed in our modern times. We know that the Romans made repairs to the Sphinx, as did the dynastic Egyptians on several occasions. Curiously, although it's claimed that the Sphinx was created in the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom, it's also on record that there are 4th dynasty repairs to the Sphinx. How exactly does this work? The 4th dynasty was not a particularly long time, and if you made your monument in this period, why are there records of it also being repaired in the same time frame? No discussion on the age of the Sphinx would be complete without mentioning the work in the late 1990s of the legendary John Anthony West and the Professor of Geology, Dr. Robert Schoch. Together, they redated the Sphinx by analysing the erosion patterns found on the limestone walls of the bedrock enclosure from which it was carved. And the details of this story are likely well known to anyone with even a passing interest in the Sphinx itself. As a brief summary, however, working on the invitation and the intuition of John Anthony West, Dr. Schoch identified the vertical erosion features of the limestone walls of the Sphinx enclosure as rainfall erosion, and something that would have required significant and extended periods of heavy rainfall to form. Schoch, as well as several other qualified geologists, categorically state that this is not wind or sand erosion, as was previously assumed to be the case by Egyptologists. If you show images of this erosion to any geologist, without mentioning the context of where it is and thus avoiding the contention around what it could mean, you'll likely get the same answer. It's textbook rainfall erosion as it appears on limestone. Given that this area of Egypt has not been subject to this type of weather and rainfall since the period around 9,000 to 11,000 years ago, this conclusion that the Sphinx and its enclosure may be significantly older than the dynastic Egyptian civilization caused quite a stir, and understandably so. Even today, over 20 years later, it's still a hotly contested subject. You don't have to go very far to find evidence for this contention either, and once again we visit that bastion of establishment groupthink Wikipedia, where this rainfall erosion theory is, perhaps predictably, firmly labelled as a fringe claim. In my opinion, this is both unsurprising and also a ridiculous statement. The rainfall erosion theory is one that is firmly supported by science, and the rebuttals against it that are listed on this page are, at least in my opinion, weak at best. Without getting into the details, because we could probably sit here for another 30 minutes just talking about this one facet of the Sphinx, it probably is worth noting that the original argument that was made against these claims by West and Schoch, and this argument is one that is still listed on this Wikipedia page. It's an argument that came from Zahi Hawass himself, and this was that the Sphinx could not come from this earlier period, this 5,000 years or more before the ancient Egyptian civilization, as there is no evidence of any other megalithic civilization or works that predate the ancient Egyptians to this degree. And to be fair, this argument was made only a couple of years after the dig in Turkey at the now famous Göbekli Tepe site had begun, and back then in the late 90s, his observation was most likely correct. We hadn't really understood what we found at Göbekli Tepe. Since then, however, Göbekli Tepe has turned out to be a huge megalithic site, one that's located not very far from Egypt, and it's one that dates to at least the period that is mentioned by Schoch, some 9 to 11,000 years ago, which is 5,000 years or more before the dynastic Egyptians ever kicked off, and thus it directly contradicts this argument. That said, do you think Göbekli Tepe is mentioned anywhere on the Wikipedia page about this so-called fringe theory? Survey says. This is an interesting topic, and I was there in Egypt in 2015 when Zahi Hawass was asked directly about the relevance of Göbekli Tepe as they apply to the origins of ancient Egypt. This was captured on video by several other members on that tour. I'd recommend checking out the full video if you haven't seen it. I've left a link to it down in the description below. It was quite a dramatic day, really. This was supposed to be the first debate between Zahi Hawass and Graham Hancock, didn't really pan out that way. It's a story that I think I'd like to tell on a live stream about this trip and particularly about this day at some point in the future. Essentially, Zahi Hawass just claimed that he didn't have any knowledge of Göbekli Tepe. He also made the proclamation that he doesn't believe in radar and has never found anything using it. And then Graham Hancock responded with what I think is a concise summary of the argument and exactly why Göbekli Tepe does, in fact, have an impact on the age of the Sphinx.
The argument about the Sphinx made by Dr. Marcolini some years ago was that the Sphinx couldn't possibly be 12,000 years old because there was no other site, no other megalithic site anywhere in the world which was anywhere in the range of 12,000 years old. When we have a major discovery conducted by a respected archaeological institute in Turkey of a major megalithic site which is 11,600 years old, I believe vitiates that argument against an absence of context for the Sphinx, which is also a megalithic monument.
It's worth noting that this figure of 9 to 11,000 years old, which was made by John Anthony West and Robert Schoch, is perhaps the youngest estimate. It's a very conservative figure, intended, I think, to engage the establishment in some form of discussion rather than just having them dismiss it out of hand. It's certainly possible that the erosion patterns on the walls of this Sphinx enclosure could indicate a much longer timeline, even up to some 30,000 years or more. Another piece of evidence suggesting that these suggests is the Orion correlation, a theory presented by Robert Bauval, which aligns the entire Giza Plateau and the Nile with the Orion constellation and the Milky Way in the heavens above. Using precession of the equinoxes and the presumption that the Sphinx was originally a lion, the constellation of Leo would have risen due east of the Sphinx during the vernal equinox, approximately 10,500 years ago. Unsurprisingly, Wikipedia also labels this as a fringe theory. Whether the Sphinx was originally a lion or whether it was Anubis, which is a case that my friend Chuck at the CFAPS 7865 channel argues quite convincingly, I think the only thing that we can be truly certain of is that the head of the Sphinx was most definitely recarved, as it just doesn't seem to have the same degree of age that the other parts of the monument do. It's also blindingly obvious that this head has been recarved to anyone with the most basic sense of proportion. This isn't something that the ancient Egyptians often got wrong, but when you look at the Sphinx, it's obvious that the head is far too small for the body. And I think this is particularly evident if you can find older photographs that show the original dimensions of the neck. I think it was most likely recarved in dynastic times, probably early in the Old Kingdom, and well before Thutmose IV erected his dream stele, as depictions of the Sphinx that are shown on the stele also have it with this current human head. The sculpture itself could well be of somebody from the 4th dynasty, perhaps even Khufu or Cheops, as suggested by Matt at the Ancient Architects channel in his latest video. It's worth noting here again that there are repairs to the Sphinx that date from this early period. And for once, this isn't something that's labelled just as a fringe theory. In fact, it's not even contested. It's stated by establishment Egyptologists like Lehner and Hawass that these repairs happened in the 4th dynasty. The fact is that this simply doesn't reconcile with the idea that it was also built in the same period. This is yet another one of those contradictions to the story of history that is just hiding in plain sight. The other thing to consider about the Sphinx is that it has been buried up to its neck in sand for millennia. It was buried in King Thutmose's time. After all, he tells the story of how he had to dig it up, and it was buried before the Greek-Roman period because they had to dig it up. Presumably at some point after that, it again was buried in sand because Caligula had to dig it up for the first time in the modern era in 1817. Even after Caligula's dig, it didn't take long once again for the Sphinx to become buried in sand up to its neck, as the science of photography developed after his time, and we have many antique photos that show the Sphinx's head poking up out of the desert. Notice that we do not see the same type of heavy erosion on the head of the Sphinx, the same type of erosion that we see on parts of its body or on the walls of the enclosure. Isn't this strange, considering the head was the only part of the Sphinx to have not been buried in sand for all this time? This is an important point, because the idea that these erosion marks on the enclosure and on the body of the Sphinx were created by wind-borne sand is still used to this day to refute the evidence presented by John Anthony West and Robert Schoch. It's an absolutely massive contradiction. You have the head of the Sphinx poking up out of the desert, never been buried in sand, doesn't show any signs of this form of wind-borne sand erosion, yet at the same time, you've got these elements of the Sphinx that have been buried in the sand, and we're claiming that the erosion on these was created by wind-borne sand. In what world does this explanation for what we can see with our own eyes make any sense? I think the truth is that you need thousands of years of rainfall to create the erosion patterns that we see on the limestone. And this means thousands of years for the full enclosure being exposed to the elements, as well as a climate that produces this type of rain. I believe this occurred before this area was overtaken by the Sahara Desert. We have to go back to the heavy rainout period that occurred after the Younger Dryas event of some 13,000 years ago, or perhaps even before then, a time when this area of Egypt was not a desert, but rather a verdant paradise. I think this monument, that today we call the Great Sphinx, is an enduring echo and a record of human achievement, and something that comes to us from a lost ancient civilization that existed on this planet long before we ever thought possible. Thanks for watching. Hey all, I hope you found that somewhat interesting. I've been wanting to sort of get my teeth into the Sphinx and sort of lay down what I think about it for some time now. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. I do have a number of things to kind of go over in this little segment here, so kind of stand by for a longer than usual postscript to this. The first thing is that hopefully by the time this video goes live, you'll be able to see the join button on my channel. For anybody that's looking to help me out and support the channel directly here on YouTube, the way I'm going to deal with this is pretty simple. It's the same way I deal with the people on Patreon and Subscribestar. If anyone who joins the community here will get access to a number of sort of patron-only or supporter-only videos, some content. But one of the things I wanted to mention specifically relating to the Sphinx is that in there is the first post, kind of all of the details from this book here, which is The Sphinx Revealed. This is Henry Salt's account, and this is the publication that came from the British Museum. But as I was making this video, I was also scanning all of the pages out of this book. That's something that will be available for patrons and supporters that you can get at. This book does have an amazing amount of resources and information, plenty more in here than I could ever get to in one video. It also includes the full transcription of Henry Salt's account of Cavicula's work at Giza. There's a lot of information in there about early explorations of the Great Pyramid, things like that. And that's something that I hope to continue going forward with some of the other resources that I have, like Poznański's book on Tiwanaku, that type of thing. Secondly, I also wanted to let everyone know that my podcast is now available. I hear from a lot of people that they like to, I guess, just listen to the audio from my videos as they're doing work or driving or that type of thing. And I've been asked a number of times if I have that available in an MP3 or a podcast format. So I'm happy to say that yes, that podcast is now up and available. Search for Uncharted X on podcasts, Google Podcasts. You should be able to find them. I am working on adding more of these as format, then it's all up there in the your usual podcast libraries. Thirdly, I just wanted to provide a quick update as to the Egypt trip. It was first announced, I think, back in February of 2020, and it kind of sold out really quickly. And then 2020 came crashing down around everybody's ears. I'm very pleased to say that this trip is going ahead. It is filling up. There are a few spaces available, however. So if you're interested in getting to Egypt at it's short notice at this point. But Egypt's going to be an incredible opportunity, given that I think it's going to be mostly free of tourists altogether, and we stand a good chance of having a lot of these sites to ourselves. The dates for the trip are November 28th to December 12th. I'm also really happy to say that I'm going on this trip with Jimmy from the Bright Insight channel. We've been talking quite a lot and he got on board. All the details are on the website. It's unchartedx.com/tour. And there'll also be another special guest coming on this trip. George Howard has registered and he's coming along. If you don't know who George is, I've done an interview with him on my channel, and I'm really looking forward to spending time with Jimmy and George and everybody else in Egypt that makes it. Just a couple of other recommendations that I wanted to get in here. And these are things that I'm going to talk about in another video that I release here, hopefully pretty soon. But one of those is that many of you will know the documentary Revelations of the Pyramids. It's one of my favorite, all-time favorite Egyptology and just general, I guess, ancient history and mystery videos. It's an excellent piece of work. It was done by Patrice Pouillard. He's a French director. I've been in touch with Patrice recently, over the last couple of months, I suppose, and he has made a follow-up documentary to Revelations. It's called Builders of the Ancient Mysteries, and I've seen it. It's just an excellent documentary. I do want to give my full review of this, talk a little bit about some of the things that were, I guess, achieved in this. I'd highly recommend it. If you look down in the description below, you'll find a link to view the documentary. It's a streaming service to view it. I've got an affiliate link there. If you view it and you want to check it out, it does help me out a little bit. But as I said, I'm going to talk a bit more about what I think about this documentary in an upcoming video. Something else along the same lines is Josh Blaylock's Ark World. This is just an exceptional graphic novel that Josh Blaylock has recently been working on, and he's released a couple of volumes of this. It's just, if anyone that's interested in graphic novels and adult comics, and along with the mystery of kind of Atlantis and lost ancient high technologies, a lot of those concepts, consciousness concepts, all that type of thing, red-haired giants, all that type of thing, it's all bundled up into this really intriguing story. I've read it, I've talked with Josh. Hopefully I'll do a podcast with him at some point in the future too. I kind of helped him consult a little bit on some of the concepts and those types of things in it. I find it really engaging. It's super interesting. It's a really good story. It is aimed at adults. You can find all of this, if you're interested in it, at archaeopunk.com. That's the website to go check this comic out. I'd highly recommend it. And then, as usual, I just also wanted to take the time to say thank you to everybody who does support the channel through the value for value model. Again, your support's the only reason I'm able to spend the time to make and edit all of these videos. The channel did pass a bit of a milestone recently. We even got a little shiny new little thing over here that commemorates it. Ooh, shiny. So just a massive thank you to anybody who does subscribe to the channel, as well as any of you who do support me through more direct means. There's lots of ways to do that if you're interested. They're all outlined at unchartedx.com/support. I know it's been a little while since I've released some content. I've had a few things going on in my life now, but the train is now back firmly on the tracks, and I have plans for quite a bit coming out soon, as well as there's going to be a lot of content coming out once I get through this Egypt trip. So until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.
Egypt, land of the Nile. By the 12th century BC, this place was already old. Vast temple complexes and pyramids dominating the horizon. Monuments to the power of kings who ruled over 1,000 years before. A different time, a different dynasty. In the intervening years, since those colossal edifices had been hewn into the landscape, Egypt had seen societal turmoil, outside invasion, and dark age. Yet, more than a millennia on, the same gods ruled over this land. A more or less similar culture held sway. And now, Egypt was no longer going it alone. One piece of a vast, interconnected trade system.
myself a lot of questions. Always bored at school, where all questions were answered except for the important ones. I spend the time daydreaming, thinking about things that surrounds us. Easter Island, the pyramids of Giza, Machu Picchu, mythical places which have made us all dream at some point. You may ask yourself questions, lots of questions, but asking the right ones is truly an art, a priceless art that everyone can afford. This is how I found myself, many years later, looking into the past of our planet, far, very far back in time. And what I discovered changed my vision of the past forever.
Il existe en Inde, au milieu de nulle part, les plus extraordinaires grottes au monde. Elles ont été creusées à l'intérieur d'énormes roches de granit. L'histoire nous apprend qu'elles sont les premières et les plus anciennes de l'Inde, qu'il s'agit de salles de méditation réalisées par le peuple Maurya à la demande du roi Ashoka il y a 2300 ans, ce qui serait prouvé par des inscriptions gravées. Voici à quoi elles ressemblent. Et voici ce qui les rend uniques. La première est de section trapézoïdale, surplombée d'une portion de cylindre, entrée sur sa largeur. La deuxième est de section trapézoïdale, également coiffée d'une portion de cylindre, mais l'entrée est sur sa longueur. La troisième est de section courbe, arrondie à une extrémité. La quatrième est de section trapézoïdale, surplombée d'une portion de cylindre, arrondie aux deux extrémités.
Bro, is you speaking French?
La cinquième.
I don't understand that shit, man. Alright. I gotta go to the bathroom. Okay.
The Hyundai Kona with driver attention warning. Not available on Chevy Trax, Honda HR-V, or Jeep Renegade.
Lease a Kona for $129 a month or get 0% APR for 60 months plus no payments for 90 days. Visit buyhyundai.com.
Dive into Disney Plus and bring home the adventure. Rocket into the movies you love. Bring on the baddies, the bold, and the greatest stories ever told. Discover a galaxy of action. All the blockbusters are here. So what are you waiting for? Bring it on. Or bring it in. Find everything you love at Disney Plus.
Egypt, several stories were heard about Setna, the son of Ramses the Great, who was the wisest of all the scribes, and who discovered and read Thoth's text. Tales were also heard of his son, Se-Osiris, the gift of Osiris, the beautiful boy who was the best magician Egypt had ever met at the age of 12. His most famous trick started on a day when Ramses was sitting with his princes and nobles around him in the great hall of his palace at Thebes. At that moment, the Grand Vizier came in with a look of stunned confusion on his face and bowed to Ramses, crying, "Life, safety, power be with you, holy Pharaoh. There has come to your court a rascally 7-foot-tall Ethiopian who demands to speak with you, saying he's here to prove that the magic of Egypt is nothing compared to the magic of Ethiopia. Let him come in," commanded Pharaoh. A huge Ethiopian strode into his presence, bowed to the ground, saying, "King of Egypt, I've brought a sealed letter here in my hand to see if anyone can read it. And if none of them can understand it, I'll go back to Ethiopia to inform my king and all his subjects how bad the Egyptians' magic is, and you'll be a jest on all men's lips." Pharaoh was furious when he learned this, and he sent Setna in a hurry for his wise friend, asking him what had occurred. Setna was also dismayed, but he said, "O Pharaoh, my lord, to you be life, health, and power. Ask this barbarian to go and take his rest. Let him feed, drink, and sleep in the royal guest house before your court is gathered next, when I bring a magician to prove that we who perform magic in Egypt are a match for anyone from the lands beyond Cush." "So be it," Pharaoh replied, and the Ethiopian was taken away to the royal guest. Setna was distressed, though he had spoken so proudly. Although he had read Thoth's book and was Egypt's wisest man and the most professional sorcerer, he was unable to read a letter written on a papyrus scroll that was rolled up and sealed without cracking the seal and unrolling the text. When he came back to his palace, he lay down on his couch to think. He looked so pale and troubled, and his wife came to him, fearing he was ill. Her son, Se-Osiris, came with her, and the woman burst into tears when Setna had said all his trouble. But the child began to laugh, much anxiety to Pharaoh, and so much sorrow to me, your father.
Because his son was able to read the sealed letter.
And you two strike me as a couple of true believers who are no more willing to question the theory that you base your beliefs on than were the ministers of the 19th century whom you so roundly criticized as being closed-minded. I'd like to raise a couple of questions and see how you respond.
Sure, fire away.
Regarding this theory. Number one, how do you explain the switch from asexual reproduction to sexual reproduction?
Well, first off, let me say that in no way challenges the validity of biological evolution, whether we're able or unable to explain the fact that many species, by no means all, reproduce sexually today. The
The Darwinian concept of evolution and natural selection is profoundly verified, not just by the fossil record.
Well, where are the fossils in transition?
Excuse me. Not just by the clear experience of artificial selection, but by the record in the nucleic acids, which is obtained by DNA sequencing, in which we can see the similarities and differences of organisms and trace their evolutionary past.
In other words, you got this
history
theory with a gaping hole in it.
There's no gaping.
It doesn't cause you to question the theory.
There's no gaping holes. You're talking about the absence of intermediate forms in the fossil record.
That was one problem.
The fossil record. Well, let's talk about each thing that you have problems with. There's time. Well, just a minute. You raise one, and then when I'm about to answer it, you rush off to the next. Let's do them one at a time. The fossil record is necessarily incomplete because of the processes of erosion, but particularly, it seems to me...
And all the fossils in transition got picked off.
Sir, nobody said all the fossils. There's lots of intermediate forms.
You're going to have to put aside your creationist primer for a moment and either listen to the answers that you raised. Well, sir, I will thank you for the call, but I think it would be unproductive to continue because our caller, I fear, is too ready to do battle rather than to listen. He rather reminds me of Pontius Pilate. He asks what is truth, but does not stay for the answer.
Let me at least respond to one of the caller's concerns. Consider artificial selection. I mean, there is something intrinsically implausible about evolution, particularly if you think that the world is only a few thousand years old, as the biblical chronology would have it. Then the idea of one species flowing into another is absurd. We never see that in our everyday life, we are told. But consider artificial selection. Consider, for example, the variety of dogs on the planet. We have dogs ranging from Chihuahuas to Great Danes. We have dogs specialized for herding sheep, for going into holes, for catching birds that are shot down, for taking care of the babies, for guarding the house. Tremendous variety of dogs on the planet.
And in fact, they are man-made dogs in a way.
Exactly. Where did they come from? We, humans, made them by controlling which dog shall mate with which. We like the characteristics of Rover. We like the characteristics of Spot. We now introduce Rover and Spot to each other so that we can have the products of their progeny. Other dogs with characteristics we don't like, who are unpleasant to us, we do not encourage their reproduction of. And in the short period of 8,000 or 10,000 years, we produce this immense variety of dogs. Now, compare that with 4 billion years of biological evolution, not artificial selection, but natural selection, which goes into not just the overall characteristics and personalities of the dogs, but into the biochemistry, into the internal organs, selecting what works a little bit better, just the faintest bit, in the competition of organisms. And then it is clear that the beauty and diversity of life on Earth can emerge. But if you don't buy 4 billion years, you don't buy evolution.
Yeah, I swear it's so fucking crazy how my speaker just loses connection whenever it wants to. Like, right now, the videos are still playing, but the speaker just like, nope, don't want you to hear the sound. I'm not going to allow it. kind of warned everybody at the beginning of the stream that I would be painting books. And not even like putting the letters on it, just kind of straightening up the lines a little bit and getting the colors right. And that this is going to be boring. Hey, at least I admitted it. You know what I'm saying? The shit looks good when it's done. All the books on the shelves, you know what I'm saying? All the knowledge and education just sitting right there in your face. But in order to get that shit, oh my God, it's just this long, tedious process of actually painting books. You want to come sit here and do this? You want to come paint these books? Huh? Huh? Well, do you? No? I didn't think so. You know how long I've been painting books? I've been painting books longer than you've been alive. If you use the highest quality materials, oh yeah, your supplies do cost a lot, bro. And then at the same time, it all depends on the quality of artwork that you can produce with the supplies you buy. Now you can buy $100 tube of paint and $100 canvas and $100 brush, and you have $300 invested into supplies. But then when you go to use that shit, you produce a piece of art that nobody wouldn't even pay fucking $50 for that shit. Or you can invest $300 in supplies and produce a piece of art that someone would pay $3,000 for.
Imagine a world where you can become the protagonist of your favourite movie or TV show. Instead of using streaming services to watch a movie, what if you could be able to participate in the storyline and play the role of the main character? If technological growth continues at its current rate, it's easy to imagine that one day, not that far into the future, we will be able to fully immerse ourselves in just about any virtual world we would like. In 2018, the global box office for the film industry was worth $41.7 billion, while the revenue of the gaming industry in the US alone generated a record $43.4 billion in 2018. However, when including box office and home entertainment revenue, the global film industry was worth $136 billion. But already, job security in acting has hit a whole new level of difficulty when the cost of CGI is lower than the cost of hiring professional actors.
We've heard word of rumours circulating through the city.
Fortunately for actors, computer-generated imagery is still in the uncanny valley. But as this technology advances, with the integration of artificial intelligence, one of the first white-collar job casualties may be the profession of acting. One might argue about the ethical implications of living in such a world, but production companies will be financially incentivized to produce digital art without having their budget cut a huge paycheck to their human superstars. Instead, they will be able to use AI that never needs a break, works 24 hours a day, and does all its stunts inside a computer simulation. Arguing that this is far into the future is not compelling as the growth of information technology continues.
The Hyundai Kona with driver attention warning. Not available on Chevy Trax, Honda HR-V, or Jeep.
We are not.
So we're already at the point where they're going to start creating digital actors that will cross all kind of platforms. So you can have a character in a video game do a Pepsi commercial, and act in a TV sitcom, and they're a totally digital creation, but has different jobs, and you know they might start giving us our news and our weather. This shit is getting weird, yo. Weatherman looks just like a regular person, but in actuality he's a simulated being. A computer generated image.
Hardwired to grasp exponential growth. Thus, we tend to spend our time making non-sequitur arguments about this issue. But we ought to spend our time trying to improve the system so that the economic repercussions are not grave for certain occupations, like acting. Obviously, enormous changes like this would not happen overnight, and certainly actors are getting paid for their gigs in the gaming industry as well.
There's nowhere you can hide, Spartan.
It's reasonable to expect that this will only increase in the future as demand for higher quality of gaming graphics is fueling the growth of the industry.
Did you kill something that big?
In May 2020, Epic Games, the American video game and software developer and publisher, revealed their latest game engine called Unreal Engine 5, which supports all existing systems, including the next-gen consoles, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. The goal of Unreal Engine 5 was to make it as easy as possible for developers to create detailed game worlds without having to spend excessive time on creating new detailed assets, allowing the engine to take care of these problems. It's simply breathtaking when you realise the progression of in-game graphics went from this to this. And it will get only better. If technological growth and innovation continues, it stands to reason the time it takes to go from the graphics shown on Unreal Engine 5 to indistinguishable from reality graphics is far less than it took to go from the 1972 Pong game to the Unreal Engine 5 demo.
It's time to see what's next.
Of course, right now, video games have the edge over VR when it comes to graphics and market value. But as far as virtual reality is concerned, graphics are only one component to achieve a full, in-depth, immersive experience. While it's true that we are primarily visual creatures, our other senses will have to be included as well, in order to emulate just about any real experience we can possibly have. The next big thing in VR, software and hardware developers need to conquer, besides audio-visual, is the sense of touch. There are countless virtual reality-based companies focusing on developing sophisticated tactile technology with a variety of solutions, such as Avatar VR, Hi-Fi VR Glove, VR Free, HaptX, Dexter Robotics with their Dexmo Haptic Force feedback glove, etc. VR games like Lone Echo 2, Undead Citadel, Medal of Honor, Half-Life Alyx, etc. are expected to push the VR market forward. When the official gameplay trailer for Star Wars Squadron came out,
People outside the VR community started to see the potential the virtual world has to offer. But as good as these games may look today, in 2025, we will most likely look back and wonder why we were impressed by them. It's fascinating how fast we adopt a dismissive attitude towards older technology once it gets replaced with a new, better one. However, being mindful of this bias, even if haptic feedback and VR graphics are polished by tomorrow, the VR experience still has a major obstacle to overcome: locomotion. Some people feel motion sickness when using common locomotion methods, such as joystick walking or even teleportation, which is by far, according to most users of VR, the worst way to move around from place to place in virtual reality. To get closer to a place like the Oasis in the movie Ready Player One, we need to solve this problem. One solution, just like in the movie, is to make use of omnidirectional treadmills. Cat VR, the China-based VR tech company, came up with a customer-centered VR treadmill called Catwalk C. The $100,000 crowdfunding campaign goal was reached within 3 minutes and surpassed $1 million in less than a day.
Presenting Catwalk C, your first personal VR treadmill.
The personal VR treadmill offers a range of motions such as running, moving backwards, strafing, crouching, etc. Who would have thought that gameplay, for once, would help you fight obesity instead of intensifying it? A 2025 version of VR graphics, haptic feedback gloves, full VR bodysuit such as the Tesla suit, and an omnidirectional VR treadmill like Catwalk C will make the virtual experience become as close to a sci-fi movie as we can imagine. But first, the pricing of all these features has to go down. And that's when VR will eventually become mainstream, which is to say, owning a VR headset and all the rest becomes as casual as owning a cell phone. By 2025, the virtual reality industry is predicted to reach close to $88 billion. Although the entertainment business, such as the gaming industry, is a major component driving the VR market and technology forward, it's certainly not the only one. Education will also play a key role in propelling virtual reality to its full potential. As VR tech improves, just like the gaming industry may subsume the film industry, seemingly non-related fields may start to converge. Imagine for your school or university assignment, you have to learn about ancient Egypt and how the pyramids were built. You put your VR headset on and you go back in time. You learn and you're entertained at the same time. Schoolwork may never feel boring ever again. You can learn about history, science and even art through the virtual world. Work offices may become obsolete. Working remotely is an ever-growing trend in the 21st century global economy. In the distant future, even jobs that require physical presence may be performed through a VR gear operating a robot connected to the employer's network. As AI self-driving vehicles start to become the norm, the time for a car or aeroplane can be used much more productively with VR. Basically, every relevant field in our lives will be improved and transformed through virtual reality technology. Today, there are many tech giants involved in VR, such as Sony, Facebook, Microsoft, Samsung, etc. The list is only expected to grow. Apple will also eventually leave its mark in the VR business, literally. But today, Sony is still at the top with about 37% of the total shipments. In June 2020, they revealed the PlayStation 5 console. If they announce a release of a PS VR2 headset, they are expected to remain the lead VR vendor. As the competition between these companies fuels the VR industry, the evolution of virtual reality headsets will also accelerate.
Warren Flanagan has the solution for your best sleep yet. Get a free adjustable base with the purchase of select mattresses. Plus, with free next-day...
Today it might seem the future of VR will be shaped by standalone VR headsets, which are wireless virtual reality headsets that don't require a PC or a smartphone to deliver a VR experience. The headsets, as made popular by releases such as the Oculus Go, include built-in processors, GPU, sensors, battery, memory, and more. But the improvement of 5G technology will enable data processing with close to zero latency on a cloud-based system, meaning the VR headset won't need built-in processors to offer a virtual experience. A 5G fast internet connection will enable data processing on the cloud, which will possibly morph the shape of the VR headset ever so closely to a lens. Then we will behold the link between AR and VR into XR, but extended reality is a topic that deserves a video of its own.
Extended
Thanks
reality.
for
I
watching.
already say,
Did you like
wow.
this video? Then show your support by subscribing,
AR
ring the bell,
and
and enabling
VR. So
notifications
AR
to never
is
miss
augmented
videos like
reality
this.
and VR is virtual reality, and together they make XR, extended reality. If you have virtual reality and augmented reality, I gotta look into that. I've never heard anybody say extended reality. Interesting. Interesting indeed. We're living in a scientific age, people. Don't get left behind with the technology. This augmented reality is going to be implemented in our vehicles, and GPS is very soon. Very, 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 very soon. Very soon. And I'm still just trying to straighten some of these lines out. Add a little color, straighten a little line out. After this part, the next, when this dries, I can come back and start putting the letters onto the books. That's going to be the fun part. Right now, let's just straighten out the lines and get some more of the colors right. And then we'll come back for the letters. There's a lot of lettering to be done.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready?
Nope.
Drop in and explore. Yeah.
As curious beings, it's in our nature to wonder about the future. Even when we think about the past, it's only because we are hardwired to find patterns so we can better predict future outcomes. The driving force that shapes almost every aspect of the future of our civilization is technology. It's a gripping thought when you realise that for most of the time in human history, the lives of our ancestors were not that much different from their previous generation. The human species is about 200,000 years old, and most of that time, humans were hunters and gatherers. Even after we developed civilization, after the invention of agriculture, the lives of ordinary people living in, let's say, the first century of the Common Era remained relatively unchanged compared to people living 1,000 years later. Civilization shifted into the next gear only when the Industrial Revolution kicked in. In a span of only 260 years after the first Industrial Revolution, technology transformed our lives more than ever before in the history of our species. Most science fiction movies portray the lives of people living in the future with fancy gadgets and equipment, fulfilling all of our needs by command. Perhaps the first technology to mimic such a scenario and make us feel like we are living in the future is going to be the use of XR, or extended reality. So, what is exactly XR? To better understand the prospects of extended reality and its applications, we first need to learn about its constituents. XR encompasses a conglomeration of virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. First, let's take a look at the most familiar one, VR.
Sorry guys, I can't come to lunch. I blew all my money on this gaming rig.
Did you use honey? You could have saved like so much money.
Virtual reality is the use of computer technology to create a simulated experience that can be similar to, or completely different from, the real world. Standard virtual reality systems use either VR headsets or multi-projected environments to generate realistic visuals and sounds. The VR headset, with its user interface, offers you a digital experience that you can immerse yourself in any created 3D environment instead of just watching on a conventional 2D computer screen. Some early prototypes of virtual experiences predate even digital computing. Morton Helling wrote in the 1950s of an experience theatre that could encompass all the senses in an effective manner, drawing the viewer into the on-screen activity. In 1962, he built a prototype of his vision called Sensorama, along with 5 short films to be displayed in it while engaging multiple senses such as sight, sound, smell and touch. Today there are countless companies producing VR headsets. Among the most popular ones are Sony's PSVR, the standalone Oculus Quest, Valve Index, HTC Vive, etc. Obviously gaming is the major industry propelling VR forward, but there are other fields beginning to incorporate virtual reality such as education, medical training and healthcare in general, the military, etc. If you want to learn more about this subject, we've uploaded a previous video solely dedicated to VR that's being suggested to you at the top right hand corner. But next is augmented reality. In contrast to virtual reality, AR is an interactive experience of a real-world environment where the objects that reside in the real world are enhanced by computer-generated perceptual information across multiple, if not all, sensory modulates. AR can be defined as a system that fulfills 3 basic features: a combination of the real and virtual world, a real-time interaction, and accurate 3D registration of virtual and real objects. The overlaid sensory information can be constructive, additive to the natural environment, or it can be destructive, meaning the natural environment is masked to show virtual objects. In this way, augmented reality alters the perception of the real world, whereas VR completely replaces the user's real-world environment with a simulated one. There are many camera-based AR apps you can use with your smartphone right now. If you happen to own an iPhone, you can download the Measure app from the App Store for free. This app enables you to quickly measure the size of real objects, a person's height, and it can automatically provide the dimensions of rectangular ones. IKEA also came up with an AR app called IKEA Place, which lets you place virtual furniture in your house by simply taking a photograph of your physical space. Perhaps one of the best free AR apps out there is JigSpace. This app allows you to explore interactive 3D objects of just about anything. The library includes a mixture of fields such as machines, science, how-to, space, and even history. If you want a more in-depth video about this topic, check out our video about AR on your top right-hand corner. And finally, the last in our shortlist is mixed reality. MR is the merging of real and virtual worlds to produce new environments and visualizations, where physical and digital objects coexist and interact in real time. As the name implies, mixed reality is the mixing of the real and virtual world. MR does not exclusively take place in either the physical or the virtual world, but is rather a hybrid of the two. MR is similar to augmented reality, but there is a key difference. Mixed reality allows virtual overlay graphics to interact with the real world. On February 2019, Microsoft released their new pair of mixed reality smart glasses called HoloLens 2. In this showcase, they demonstrated their MR smart glasses with an application created with Unreal Engine. 2 months after the announcement, the HoloLens 2 emulator also was made available to developers, which allows developers to create applications for this MR device. The HoloLens 2 has a diagonal field of view of 52 degrees with a resolution of 47 pixels per degree, improved hologram stability, new hardware, and accelerated workloads such as eye tracking. fully articulated hand tracking, semantic labeling, spatial audio, etc. However, this device is not currently meant for consumers, as its price is enormous, costing $3,500. In your top right-hand corner, you can find a more detailed video about MR. And there you have it, the three main realities that compose extended reality. That's why there is a need to improve this technology with an excellent device that encompasses all three realities. Instead of having a different device for each round, a VR headset, an AR-compatible device, and an MR headset, the market will eventually produce an affordable device.
Some darker colors on my palette, some black, so I can straighten out this area and this area here. And with the black, I can add some highlights to the pages at the bottom of the book.
VR headset came with a huge announcement. They will start collaborating with 15 world-leading operators to deliver XR viewers.
I said, I just want to tighten up the lines.
XR, part of their 5G offering.
And it's going to be slow going because I hate painting lines. But yeah, just tighten up some of the lines, get a little bit of highlight colors on the books before I start actually adding the letters to them. So I got half of this bookshelf done, then there's a few little books down by her elbow. And so once I get all those books done, and then she has two more sitting on her lap. Like I said, then I'll start adding some lettering to them. But I've been up since kind of early. Been here for 3 hours. Well, I talked for about an hour and 15 minutes. So I'm still gonna take a little break. I'm getting hungry again. I'm gonna go grab something to eat. I really need to finish trying to edit this video I have to submit. Put my juice back in the fridge. Ugh. Alright, I'm out of here. I might actually play some video games for a little while. I've been really playing that Need for Speed game lately. It was free this month. So, if I don't take a fucking nap, I better take all my pills down with me too. So, I'm definitely gonna get something to eat. I said I need to look through I just need to grab some photos off of Facebook or whatever to add to my little presentation. Maybe make one more little video for it. Damn, I don't know if I would need my tripod. Should I bring this downstairs with me if I'm going to film another video? Yeah, I think I'll take this downstairs with me. I'll try to get it downstairs with me at least. But it's still early in the day. Like I said, I'm just going to take a break. I need to grab something to eat, do a couple of other little things. If you guys don't jump into my video game stream, definitely look out for me later this evening or tomorrow morning to be back here in the studio working on some of these beautiful paintings. Right now we're doing this one right here, Blueprint for Black Power. Just trying to work on the background a little bit. And this will be our project for the next couple weeks. I do have a couple of commissions on the hook, maybe. I've had, just over this weekend, I've had 3 people ask for pricing on artwork. So I immediately sent out my price list, depending on who can actually afford it or who feels like it's worth it. I may be starting some more commissions, but like I say, until then, we're just going to be working on our own personal art. And with that being said, I appreciate you guys chilling in the studio with me. And I'll catch you next time. Peace.